Oh,
Agreed.
okay, ladies and gentlemen, yes, we are live on a Wednesday. Normally, I do my shows on Thursday, but these are special occasions because the Etheria Film Festival is July the 1st, and I have had the honor and the privilege this year of being a judge for the Etheria Film Festival. And there was a bonus to that I am actually getting to interview some absolutely amazing female filmmakers and directors. Etheria is one of the most well renowned horror film festivals in the world. And the fact that I get to sit down and talk to these amazingly talented women is just an absolute plus and is an absolute honor. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a conversation with. I'm your humble host, Floyd Marshall Jr. And today I am joined by Alix Austin, all the way from the UK. This is so amazing. I love the film business because you get to meet so many different people from every part of the world. So it's just an absolute honor to have you here. So Alix, welcome to a conversation with What's Good.
It's an honor to be here, and thanks for having me. And it's lovely to be here.
Okay, so let me tell you guys a little bit about Alix because her work is stellar and is extensive. She has a partner, but this is all about her. Her partner is, do you say Kier? Am I getting that right?
Yeah,
Kier
yeah, yeah.
Stewart. Kier Stewart. But today we're going to focus on Alix because she has a film in the Etheria Film Festival, Sucker, which was absolutely bonkers. I had the privilege of judging that, and it was absolutely crazy. So we're going to talk about that in a second. But just a little bit about Alix. Alix is a British Swiss director with an all-consuming passion for action-fueled films driven by practical effects and lethal sound. I love that. After completing work on Sucker 2022, she co-directed her first feature film, Toxic Relationship Body Horror: Kill Your Lover, with with creative partner in crime, Kier Seward or Seward?
Seward, yeah.
Seward. Okay.
It's a tongue twister.
Yes, yes. So together they are AK and run production company Switchblade Cinema. The team also co-directed and created the London segment horror anthology feature Isolation in 2021 together alongside Larry Fessenden, Wendigo, The Last Winter, and other projects include Portrait Short, Wretch, and Do Not Resuscitate, which I got the opportunity to watch today.
Oh, no way.
I was looking for your films because
Mhm.
I like to, watch the films of the people that I'm interviewing so I can kind of get a feel. And
Yeah.
I found Do Not Resuscitate. But before we get into that, how did you get your start in the film business?
Very good question. So I am one of those originally actress turned filmmakers. So I studied I studied acting in Scotland, um, and I lived in Switzerland beforehand. And all I wanted to do was act, and that's what I realized as I started making movies was that actually what I wanted to do was be part of film. I do still love acting and I take every opportunity I can to do that. But there is just something about making the thing and involved in it from like start to finish. So I just really fell in love with it after that. But coming from an acting background, I do think also really helps, me talk to the actors as a director as well. And I like to think that I add an extra element to that side of things for that reason. I care quite a lot, and I don't like this sort of approach of let's use actors as living props kind of thing, which can sometimes be people's approach. But yeah, that's kind of where I originally came from. I did more theatre originally, and then because Switzerland did not have that many screen opportunities, and one of the reasons I studied in the UK and came back to the UK, because that's where I was originally born as well, was
Mhm.
because I wanted to reconnect with that side of things. And then after I studied, I moved to London. And since then, it's just kind of been one thing after the other. I've made a lot of short films. So, I've done probably like 10 years worth of short films, which has now recently culminated in us directing the feature film last year, which is almost done. almost finished with post-production. So that's very exciting.
Oh, that is absolutely awesome. So you started out as an actress, got on film set, and decided that, you know what, I think I'm better behind the camera, which is, or did I get that right?
No,
Or
no,
did you just want
it's
to segue into that? Was that just a more natural fit for you?
it kind of just naturally happened. I mean,
Mhm.
basically, I didn't explain it very well, to be fair. I basically made my first short film with my partner, Kia, who I've been together with for 10 years. Um, Basically, he said, come make films. We have cookies, come to the dark side. And I was like, all right, then. And we made a 48-hour film project together, which I think is still like a global kind of initiative. But at the time, we were in Scotland and we made this together. And we've always joked how the film could have made or broken us. And
Mhm.
thankfully, it made us, because making a film in 48 hours is just like not everyone's cup of tea. But yeah, we just kind of made it happen, and we were lucky enough to win best film for the Edinburgh 48-hour film project, which was like all the way back in like 2013, I think.
Mhm.
And it just gave me the bug, basically. And then soon after that, in the summer after that, I was like, you know what, I'll actually try and give this a go, like just me directing, and not star in it and not do the acting thing, to kind of like find my voice a little bit more as a director. And then I progressed from there, and actually ended up winning a grant to make a short film, which I did once I graduated drama school, which was sort of what I call my first proper short film, because it
Okay.
actually had some money behind it, which was my crime thriller, True Value, which I think is available on our website somewhere. But
Okay. Okay.
yeah,
So,
that was it basically. So
oh,
it's all my husband's fault, basically.
oh, okay. Okay. Oh, so you're married.
Yes, we are.
Well, that's great. So you guys have been married for 10 years. So, okay. Wow. Well, you know what? I got to get newsy. So what is that like, working with your significant other on a regular basis? Because as you said, making a film is not easy.
Mm.
And sometimes you run into snags, and you may shut it down and go home and decompress. But how does that work when you're both involved and you both have to go home? And there may have been some creative friction on the set. How do you guys work through that?
To be honest, we're very similar in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
So they often say opposites attract. It's like the complete opposite for us. So we talk about everything anyway. But I would
Mhm.
say in general, we're usually quite good at dealing with that stuff like off to the side. We don't really
Okay.
have like big blow ups in front of anyone, because it's just not cool.
Mhm.
And we're obviously, because of our relationship, I guess, even more aware of that. So if there was gonna be anything, I'd be like, right, let's go out in the hall and have a
Okay.
chat. But generally that doesn't happen very often. But I would say that the thing we found most helpful is like walk and talks. So we'll like go for a walk, and
Mhm.
it's like I feel like you're often like a lot more freer to talk to whoever you're working with. To be honest, it doesn't have to be your significant other,
Mhm.
but like your brain is actually a lot freer to just think when you're not like sat across from someone like staring them in their eyeballs.
Mhm.
You actually think more creatively, which I found really interesting. That's kind of been like part of our process for the last 3 years. Go grab a coffee and just have a walking meeting, like in all of those TV shows where they're like, let's walk and talk.
Okay.
That's basically our approach to everything. We're like, we've got a problem, let's walk and talk.
Oh, wow. So you're actually the first, uh, and which is interesting, the first person that I've ever interviewed where she's actually partners with her husband in the film company.
Mm.
Um, so a lot of the questions that I have, I'm going to have to set them aside because I'm very curious. So for myself, oftentimes I will wake up in the middle of the night
Mm.
with crazy ideas, and that's I hate waking up in the middle of the night. So do you guys find yourself, I'm asking married questions, ladies and gentlemen, so forgive me. Do
Okay.
you guys find yourself waking up in the middle of the night and you're nudging him or he's nudging you like, Alex, I just had this phenomenal idea. And you're like, really, I'm sleeping at the moment. And it wait till morning.
It's an interesting one. I think I have lots of ideas and then I write them in my notes
Okay.
immediately. I don't necessarily like poke him awake.
Okay.
We did have a very funny thing the other day where it wasn't film related, but we're both kind of obsessed with going back to the States. And as a result, I was going to sleep and we'd both agreed we were going to sleep. We'd said goodnight. And all of a sudden, like about 15, 20 minutes later, Keir suddenly goes, Alex. I was like, oh my God, what's happened? Are you okay? Is the house on fire? And he's like, I've just realized I need to go buy some cowboy boots when we're in the States. And I was like, you woke me up for this. But it was very cute. It was also very cute. So so I actually quite like it. I think it's a funny story. But I think we talk about film, like we spend probably too much time with each other, but it's also because we get on so well. So we're just talking about film all the time anyway. So if anything, I'm probably like, it'll usually be me. I'm like, can we just like let it go for tonight and we can talk about, put a pin in it and we can keep talking about it tomorrow. We're always like, buzzing with ideas and like throwing ideas around. And we're actually working on a couple like feature film script ideas at the moment. So there's a lot of that going on at the moment, which is fun.
Okay. So let me ask you a question. Action feud films driven by practical effects and lethal sound design. What do you mean by that? No, you know what? I get it because as a film festival curator, sound is king. So when I read that, when I read that, I said, "See, she gets it." But let me rephrase that. They get it. So can you talk about that and how that drives you guys' creativity? And if he's there, if he wanted to join in, by all means.
It's all good. He's off somewhere, but basically with sound in particular, we had the privilege really of working with Natasha Haycox, who's a fantastic sound designer and re-recording mixer, who's now actually a BAFTA winner, which is even more insane. Oh, wow. So she was part of the team that won last year, I believe. So she at the time, we had the joy of working with her on Wretch originally, and it just really blew our minds as to like the difference it made to what the end product of the film was because of her involvement. And we were like, okay, well, there's no going back at this point. We also had, for the first time, like a big bombastic score. And we were like, we feel like score sometimes is made to take the back seat on a lot of things. And basically like a lot of, even with horror, which I'm like, that's where you could be super experimental. A lot of the time you'll end up with a bed track that's sort of like, ooh, ooky, spooky, is something going to happen? Oh. And then you have your big wham moment, and it's like a little bit expected. And we've just really started like building our like, we like to go for sort of almost like an operatic quality with a lot of the films that we make, which you may have also sort of seen from Sucker to Do Not Resuscitate as well. But it's just, it's pretty big, it's pretty bold, it's like pretty in your face. But like, as far as I'm concerned, I want an audience member to feel something. And I want to use every like weapon in my arsenal to like make that happen. And I think sound can contribute so much to that and is often like underserved and also just not given enough attention to. So that's one of the big things. But then when I talk about action fueled, I mean very much like that forward momentum driven aspect, because there is definitely something about sitting in an atmosphere. Like I think there's definitely space for that, and it depends on what kind of medium of story you're trying to tell. And we've definitely done more of that with the feature film, because if you've seen one or two of our shorts, you might be like, how will these people make a feature film? Is it just going to be like bah, 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 the whole time? But obviously everything needs to have hills and valleys and all that. So I promise it's not just an onslaught. It's still pretty full on, but like Sucker, it's like Sucker has almost like two set pieces that I liked both of, and I think I wanted to have that sort of more action driven possession scene that I will fully admit is probably partially inspired by Suspiria, just the dance sequences in the remake of Suspiria, because I'm obsessed with that movie. Half of it, maybe not the Tilda Swinton as an older man bit, but like the dance bit of it, I'm like, I'm all here for dance horror. So this was kind of me like, yeah, living out some of that. And then, yeah, just the bathroom stuff with the fun practical effects. One of my favorite stories to tell actually is when a certain creature comes out of someone's mouth at a certain point. No spoilers, but actually kind of spoilers. But I did a test at home because I was like, my VFX artist said it would be good to have like something physical as a reference point, so I don't just have to like make it up.
Right.
So I was like, okay, well, what can I do? So I cut a pair of tights in half, I wet them down, and then I folded it up and put it in my mouth, and then got my husband to pull it out with a piece of string so that it was like a big slug coming out of my mouth. And I made it like super unfocused so that it was like in the background like it is in the movie. And so the idea with that is that any hair that got caught would like add to the effect of there's actually something coming out of her mouth. So I said to my actress, I was like, it's a bit gross, but I've done it. So hopefully you appreciate me being the guinea pig. I promise it's safe. So she was like, all right then. But I have to give Annie in particular huge props because she was wearing that big Sucker prop through all of the contortion-y bits. And that thing's like 4 pounds, which is pretty heavy. Especially because she's quite tiny. So, but she loved it, which is great. She's a fantastic creature, like, and general horror performer. So yeah, really big respect for her.
So that was a very interesting movie. And before I ask you, where did you come up with the concept? As I was watching it, I don't want to give too much away, but as I was watching it, the one thing that I kept saying to myself that I say in a lot of horror films that I watch is, why is she still standing there? Why hasn't she run yet? Why didn't she run? Especially when it was you, when you did the contortions and you were kind of walking on your back, or was it the other young lady? I'm not sure which.
No,
but
I wasn't in the film. It's Annie.
Oh, okay. So when she was actually doing the
yeah, when she's like being possessed by the Sucker,
right.
yeah.
And the other young lady is standing there watching her. I'm saying to myself, okay, at this point in time, it's time to leave.
But it's her sister.
Yeah.
You're just going to leave your sister in trials and tribulations?
Well,
it's the way I described it to the actress at the time, the direction I gave her as well was to say, you're like a pinned butterfly. You don't know if you're staying or you're going. You want to help, but you don't know how. But you want to go because it's scary as shit. And you are like, maybe I should go like call for help.
Right.
But this thing that's happening is insane. So it's like that freeze reaction, I suppose. But it's because you're being pulled in too many directions at the same time, and you also can't believe what you're seeing, I guess. So that's my explanation. Whether or not people buy it, that's not up to me, but that's what made sense to me.
You know what? And once you put it like that, that is a very good explanation, because it's not every day that you see your sister doubled up and, things happening and sounds coming out of her that you've never seen before. And the fact that she had like a 4-pound black slug draped around, and she's being very calm as she's explaining, oh, it's okay. It's not that bad. And so I guess you sitting there trying to figure things out would your natural curiosity would actually keep you from running. But my question is, how in the world did you come up with that concept, or was it a partnership? How did this
No,
film come about?
it's very much written and like conceived of by me, supported by my husband, where he was
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I really like this one. You should make this one." Whereas like I've come up with a lot of really shit ideas. Like I say shit, just like it's that thing where it's like concepts can be cheap sometimes, right? But if you have an actual structure and a story to tell, that's when you really know you should make it. And so it's in two parts. I think I was initially writing for a film challenge
Mhm.
where they were like, write a film about a haunted object. Because I was like, oh, okay, well, a haunted object would make things, fairly easy production wise. And then I was like, oh, what if instead of an object, it's like a fairly inanimate creature, but it's like on someone. And I think the other part of it was, and I'm not joking, this was during the lockdown that I came up with this idea. As I'm sure many fun ideas have come about. But I don't know about anyone else, but I was also baking banana bread like everyone else. And as part of that, I had a bunch of frozen bananas in my freezer. And I was defrosting them in order to use them for my banana bread. You're giving me a very puzzled look right now. I'm really
No,
enjoying it. You're
I'm
like,
like,
what
this
is
is
happening?
interesting.
So I defrosted them, and then I'd left them in the fridge to defrost, and I peeled them, and they were just sitting there in the tub, and they genuinely looked so disgusting. They looked
Mm,
like these huge yellow maggots,
mm.
basically sitting in their like defrosted banana juices, and I was like, I think I have a movie idea. So there you go.
And you know what? And actually, that was my look. It wasn't a look like what the hell's going on. No, it was actually a look of you use what you have and you get
Mm,
very creative with it. And the fact that you came up with that concept staring at bananas,
bananas.
it just basically shows, how open you are to the creative process, because anything and everything can be used. So how long did it actually take you guys to shoot it?
So we shot it over the course of 2.5 days,
Mhm.
which probably wasn't enough. We could have easily done with more time, but I think everyone says that. So we had 2 days with the actors in the location, and then we had the extra half day was actually just my husband shooting second unit on just the creature. When there's like it's sliding along or it's wiggling in the background or doing all this, when it does like the mind control stuff as well, you see these flashes of the sucker. That was like all shot in our apartment, basically, with the curtains closed, with some like kooky lighting on it, some colorful lighting. So yeah, so that was 2.5 days. And then it took like a good half year for post-production, but also
Oh,
because I was
wow.
calling in favors and stuff, but also because I was doing a lot of stuff with sound design. I think I would say to anyone, there's a reason why people do creatures that are humans with like attachments, like
Mm,
as in like, augmented humans, if you like. I realized that part of the reason for that is then you don't need to create a sound palette for an inanimate object in
mm.
order to try and make it believably alive. I didn't realize how tricky that was going to be. But big props to the sound team for like really making it happen. We were like, what's the right like slurping noise? And does it sound too human, or do we still need to like warp it a little bit more to make it sound more like guttural and like it's coming from a huge leech, basically? So that was a really interesting challenge. Um, and then the VFX took some time as well. But those were really fun. And it was actually really, really good to have that experience because we were immediately able to like take that over to the feature film as
Mhm.
well. I've actually become pretty like savvy at like the post-production supervision side of things as well as directing. And I do a lot of producing and organizing as well. So I just really love the post-production side of things, and seeing it through to the sweet, bitter but sweet end. So yeah, it's how I get my kicks. What can I say?
Okay, that's amazing. But you know what? It's just everything's a learning experience, and
Mm,
you're just basically adding, to your arsenal. so that if you and if, well, let's just say if you decide that you wanted to branch out, there are so many different things that you can offer a production. So oh, not only am I an actress, but I also direct, and I also am pretty damn good at post production. Not that bad at sound. So it all works, in your favor. But where did this creature come from?
That's a difficult one because, like, I wrote it originally just thinking, oh, it's just this cute little thing. And then the
Mhm.
more my actress Annie actually asked me where the inspiration came from. And I think, like, for me, I have my own, like, personal, like, things as to what it is to me. But what
Mhm.
I find so interesting, and this isn't a deflection, I promise, it's more just because I want people to make their own minds up. So I'm going to give
Mhm.
like a plethora, a little smorgasbord
Okay.
of what people have said. Um, because it's almost like a Rorschach test of like what's important to someone in at that particular time.
Mhm.
So I've had people say, "Oh, do you have some kind of like illness, and like is that weighing on you?" Because I could really see that, and I have this illness, so I could really relate. Or I also had someone say, "Oh, it's really obvious that it's about familial guilt, and all that kind of that stuff." And then you may have seen at the end, the film's actually dedicated to my good friend Marcus, who sadly passed away in 2021. And
Mhm.
he actually helped me with the scripting in the sense that he was giving me feedback, giving me notes. And he unfortunately had stomach cancer, which is
Mhm.
unfortunately what ended up taking him from us. And I just remember him reading it and being like, well, with my current condition, like this really spoke to me as I'm going through a body horror of my own. And like, good job on that. I really felt it. And like, obviously, as I said before, it's like something that's really important to me because I think that film should do more, uh, maybe than just be surface level, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So for me, I think there have been like aspects in my life that have been draining on me, and there's a bit of the familial like sibling rivalry thing in there as well, definitely. But like I think that's it, is it's like I feel like a lot of people will take what they need from it, which I think is actually a really nice thing.
Yeah, you know what? That's a very interesting explanation, because as you were sitting here talking, I'm thinking about, just in the business alone, how some people can actually be emotional vampires.
Hmm.
And they're just sucking the life out. And you know what? You've been on numerous film sets, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're on a set, you're like, oh my gosh, I have 3 more days to work with this person. I can't believe it. But then, so
Gives me
that's your
strength.
own,
Yeah.
yeah, that's your own personal sucker. But then the fact that it was in both of them. And that was interesting, because now that you put it in that particular way, oftentimes I've noticed that negative energy is contagious.
Mm.
So, it could be a metaphor for negative energy, and the fact that you're in such close proximity to that negative energy that you're now infected with it.
I really
So,
like that take. I've not had that one before, but I really like it.
yeah, it just came
There
off
you
the.
go. Yeah, yeah. No, it's a really good one. I think for me with the sisters in particular, like one of the big things with that is it's like on the one hand, I am an elder sibling, so I
Mhm.
do side with the elder sibling kind of naturally, but I was trying to understand sort of like the younger sibling side of it as well. And so when I really try very hard to understand the younger sibling, I kind of go, well, to be fair, the older sibling isn't actually listening to her. She's
Mhm.
saying, hey, if we just try and like feed it a pigeon or do something else, I've already tried all of these other things. Believe me, I've tried.
Mhm.
And she still is like, no, I insist on trying to do my way. That's when all the trouble really starts. And I
Mhm.
think that's a really interesting one. And like if they'd just been able to find some way of resolving what was going on between them, maybe it wouldn't have gone as far as it did. And like I feel like the sucker does like just take advantage of both of them in that sense.
Wow. So you know what? And see, that just added another layer, because with you saying that about the inner conflict between the two sisters, the give and take, that's what the creature feeds off of. That's what it's feeding. Oh, you know what? If you guys kind of get to a point where you can resolve it, maybe it falls off and it shrivells up. But the fact that they're having this back and forth, that's what strengthens the creature, and maybe that's what makes it pop out the other sister's back. I don't know. It could be it.
Anything is possible.
Wow. See,
I mean,
that's
look,
the
the
no.
the the,
Please
the
no.
law the law's not that deep on it, mostly because it started from more of a metaphorical point of view. So I think that's
Mhm.
what I like about it, is it can be those those things. But um I had a point and I've completely forgotten it, so I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, 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 no. I'm just saying that that's amazing. We could be here talking about that all day. But I wanted to um, briefly touch on. Well, before I touch on that, you enter this into the Etheria Film Festival, and you get that yes, which is always a phenomenal thing when you get that email saying your film has been
Mm,
selected. But this is even more special because of what could happen with Etheria, because if I'm not mistaken, the way they have it set up, if I think it's the top three films of who's ready to walk on a film set.
mm.
That's how they you didn't know that?
I don't think I did know.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. See,
You
they're
know more
all
than I do.
oh yeah. Yeah. It's a little different how they have their prize things set up,
Mm,
you know. But I don't want to give too much away, so that I don't want
that's
to
all
let the
right.
cat out the bag. But
It's okay.
that's how they do it.
That's
I
really
think they
cool. Yeah.
select a certain amount of films, and whoever I think is the top. I think they do something where they're actually setting them up on a film set
That's
in some
amazing.
type of way. So it's an absolutely amazing festival.
Yeah. Well, I knew a lot about like what they're already providing. Like, I mean, they are very, very supportive and have been a lot more supportive than a lot of other festivals, and are like
Mhm.
very clearly trying to do something beyond just, hey, here are some laurels, congratulations. It's like supportive from like a foundational level. And
Mhm.
I think that's really commendable. And, even though I'm unfortunately all the way across the globe, I still feel part of that family. And like, I'm really gutted that I can't be there on the first, but I've been trying to do my best to sort of be like engaged with it all, and like reach out to the filmmakers as well. And I can't wait also to watch all of the films on Shudder when they come out as part of the digital section. So I think it's really fun. And like I've spoken to some of the alumni as well. I spoke
Mhm.
to Izzy Lee, and Izzy Lee has nothing but amazing things to say about the program because she was part of it as well. Obviously, I know Prano Bailey Bond as well, who was also part of the alumni, and I think it's clearly they kind of know, like Etheria do know and do support. I think most importantly the talent that they've kind of like picked out. So it's just wonderful to be a part of that and like have that sort of extended family almost.
Yeah, and that is so true. And it's interesting because for so many years you've had gatekeepers, middle-aged white males, and they basically wanted to keep it all for themselves, keeping out women, keeping out people of color, LGBTQ. And one of the phenomenal things about this film festival is they said, you know what, fuck that. We're going to, excuse my French, but they're circumventing that because there's so much talent. Uh, the films that I got to watch in the judging process, they were all amazing. They were amazing. And to think that there was a time when that type of talent would not see the light of day
Mm,
because you had a particular segment of the population saying, nope, we're not allowing you to do this. So, you know, a lot of what's happening now is, people are just saying, you know what, well, if you don't want to let us in, then we'll just build our own.
Mm.
And we'll build it, and we'll build it globally, which is the phenomenal thing about Etheria. But before I let you go, because I don't want to keep you too long, because it's after 11:30 in the
Honestly,
UK.
perfectly fine. It's quite normal for me to be
Oh,
up at up
okay.
this late. So don't worry, please. Don't
Okay.
worry on my behalf.
All right. I want to talk about Do Not Resuscitate.
Sure.
Where did you guys come up with that concept? And it was interesting because when I was watching it, I saw some references to some very old films.
Yeah,
So
it's like reference the short film movie.
okay.
Yeah, I was in that one actually. I'm the patient, I'm the ghost in that one. So it's me with the long hair. But that was quite a funny one because Kia wrote and directed that one, and I produced it. And that was just basically, I think it had been a while since Kia had like directed something himself.
Mhm.
Like just since we'd done Isolation, and I think coming out the end of the pandemic and everything, like we were able to shoot things again. And I'm not actually entirely sure where the idea came from. He's obsessed with black goo. That's one thing that I've realized, is that there's like a lot of black goo in his movies. And just vomiting in general. So I think it was a case of, I'm trying to think, he just got really like interested in the idea of these sort of like gangrenous hands, and what would it be like for two paramedics to just come upon a situation like that, because often you're dealing with, as like in Sucker, you're dealing with like a family member or a friend who's just stumbled across the situation, but what would it be like for medical professionals? And both with this movie and the feature, we have paramedics in both of them. And we actually we consulted Kia's cousin, who's a doctor, to make sure that we were like representing things in an accurate way. Because one of the things that happens a lot is that paramedics and doctors are like over dramatized in films. Is one of the responses we get to the film is, but the paramedics aren't reacting like appropriately to the situation. And you're like, no, but paramedics would try and keep their cool and figure out what's going on, because there's no point in panicking. Anyway, that's not why we made the movie. That's just a weird little aside. But yeah, I think it's like kind of the closest we've come to making a ghost movie, which is not normally our thing. It's usually like the body horror side of things. I mean, Kia's got a weird mind. I'm not gonna lie. He just comes up with a lot of ideas. So we're putting that to good use now as well, like from a feature film perspective, because we're kind of like, that's kind of where we're headed. Definitely is to keep building on that.
Oh, so it was a ghost, because when I saw the reference, when I saw the
Oh yeah, no, it is a real body that's being puppeted, but I more mean in the sense of like the way it's shot is kind of more what I mean.
Okay.
Yeah, sort of more of a haunting, if you will, but
Okay.
a haunting by not an inanimate body, but a possessed body.
So and now that you know what, I just remembered watching it when you were talking about pulling something out of your mouth in Sucker. The gentleman was pulling something out of her mouth
Yes, yeah,
when she
the
was on
black, that was the black goop.
oh, okay, but
Yeah,
it was
he's
a
like, oh,
it was
there's a blockage in there. Let me try and see if I can unblock it. And he's like, ew, what the hell? What is going on with this person?
yeah, but it was really good. And the fact that it was only a few minutes was great. So talk about that. The getting to the point in a short film, because you guys did a masterful job of that, getting the story across. If I'm not mistaken, the film was what, about 4 minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the fact that you did all of that in 4 minutes was pretty damn good. So can you talk about that? What goes into writing a script,
Mm.
but then condensing it down to where you have a beginning, then you have the middle, which is the arc, and then you have the ending, and keeping it really tight.
I would say that the Kia had a really good experience on the film that he made in 2018 with me. Same setup, so him directing, writing, me producing, which was Wretch, which is actually also on Alter if you want to check it out.
Mhm.
But that was 4 minutes and 20 seconds. So the thing is that the film was always written to be short. Like it
Mhm.
was very much so. Wretch, by comparison, is maybe a little bit easier to talk about. But then Do Not Resuscitate has a similar structure in the sense that it's kind of set up to have a punchline, if you
Mhm.
will. So you've got the build up and all that kind of stuff. And then it's all to build this sort of tension and cacophony to have that payoff at the end, essentially. If I remember correctly, for instance, with Wretch, the script, I think, was 3 pages long.
Mhm.
So it's like only 3 pages, but obviously ended up being 4 minutes because there's a lot of description and we had to shoot a whole bunch of stuff. And we really believe in building those set pieces and the tension of the moment. And like, in order to make that happen, you have to have a lot of setups and like really build the moment, like show how tense people are, all this kind of stuff, because you only feel as tense as the person who's in the situation who's feeling tense. So you can have that sort of conduit. Because otherwise you're like, okay, things happening, that's cool. Whereas if you get a reaction off someone, then you're like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to feel about this. Good to know. And so, yeah, I mean, it was written to be 3 pages. We actually shot that over 2 days. So we had like a really nice long period of time to do that. But part of the reason that it took a long time is there's sort of like a final look in the film that took about 3.5 hours to apply. So that was part
Mm.
of why we needed as much time. But yeah, it's really cool. You should check that one out as well. Whereas like, so Do Not Resuscitate, I think very much followed that same structure in a way where the idea was, okay, all of this ambience and all of this sort of tension building is there to sort of build a real atmosphere, to have that sort of like payoff last line happen as well, which, you know, those who know what movie that was from.
Well, it was a phenomenal movie, and I wrote that down, so I'm definitely going to watch that one this weekend because
Yeah,
I have a
it's
long
really fun.
weekend.
Like, girl rips the skin off. What more could you want?
Oh, good gracious! So why horror? Why horror?
So horror, because I think it has the possibility to thrill, but it also has, and for me, this is just for me personally, but I always feel like there's a cathartic element to horror that I really love and enjoy. So even though you've got the pain and you've got the suffering, there is also some form of catharsis at the end, even if the end is just, okay, thank God that's over, more in the sense of the film is over, therefore it can't hurt me anymore.
Right.
Or the character goes through a cathartic kind of experience. So that's a big part of it for me. And I think one of the funny things about my trajectory with everything as well is that I was convinced before I was like 20 or whatever that I didn't like horror, even though I was the most morbid child you could have ever come across. All I talked about was death. And you're like, sure, you don't like horror, whatever. Go kid yourself with something else. But it wasn't until like I started going to the movies more regularly with my husband, that he was like, oh, well, kind of horror is a spectrum. So like you might not like ghost movies, which was
Mhm.
basically what it was, is I was like, I didn't like cheap hot jump scares and all this kind of stuff where it's just like, bang, okay, great, fantastic. Now I've weed my pants and I'm not happy. Um,
Mhm.
but just like more tension builders. I really remember having like a really like quite visceral response to the Babadook, which again wasn't as tense for other people, but for me somehow just built so much dread that it's like I watched it again the other day. I was like, the monster's not actually that scary,
Mhm.
but it's about how these 2 other characters are feeling in the situation. And I guess I just really like empathized with that. Um, and so horror, just because it can be anything, I
Mhm.
think I feel like there are less rules in a way. And I feel like the audiences, including myself, are just like more receptive
Mhm.
in a way. So that's my 2 cents. But I'd be interested. Can I ask you the question back?
Sure.
I'm assuming you like horror. I mean, it'd
Oh,
be
you know
weird if
what?
you didn't like horror.
Well, you know what? It depends. For
Mm.
me, I am more along the lines of psychological horror.
Okay, yeah, I get that.
If you can mess with my head,
Mm,
then yeah. I don't really go for the gratuitous horror where they're chopping off limbs and things like that.
mm.
Okay. Um, but for me, the horror for me, I like it to be more cerebral. That
Mm.
it's going to keep me up at night. And I actually
Yeah,
watched
yeah.
this film. Oh my gosh, it was on Amazon, and oh, I can't remember the name of it, but me and my
Oh
wife
no.
watched it, and that film bothered me for like a week. Where the guy had amnesia,
Uh-huh.
and he goes to this small town, and he's with his wife, and he goes in the house, and there's a picture on the mantle, and the picture is of him.
Mm.
And he's looking, and he was like, "Well, wait a minute, and I don't what?" And
Mm.
his wife said, "Oh, you're just imagining things. You're just imagining things." But as the film went on, he kept finding these different pictures of himself, and everyone in the town was just so happy to see him, and he
Mm.
just could not figure out, well, I don't know these people, and they were like, "Oh, it's just so good to see you." So he goes to this shop one night, and the woman, the proprietor, when she sees him, she has this response, you know, like she just seen her own death,
Mm.
and he's looking at her, and she said, "You need to leave right now." And he was like, "Well, what the hell are you talking about? I just got here with my wife." And she was like, "No, you need to leave." And interestingly enough, when he walks in the shop, there's a picture on the wall of these three men that were in the Civil War. He is in the picture. And
Mm.
he's looking, he's saying, "What the hell is going on?" Long story short, it turns out that the town years ago, the man that looked like him made a deal with the devil because the town was suffering, hunger, food short. And
Mm.
he made a deal, and I guess the deal was that his descendants would stand next to and bring about basically the most pain in the world that they could, because nearly, I'm giving a little bit too much away about this film, but in the film, you would always see him standing next to the most heinous leaders in history.
Mm.
So he was standing next to Hitler. He was
Yeah.
standing next to Stalin. And every major human atrocity in
Mm.
history, he was in it up until that point when.
Right.
So, oh, when I remember the name of that movie, I got to email it to
Yeah,
you.
yeah, please do. Because I'm
But
like, I don't know. I've definitely not
yeah,
seen it.
oh my
So
gosh. But it was more cerebral than
mm.
anything,
And it kept you
because
guessing like what
oh
was
my
going
gosh,
on, and yeah.
and by the time they got to the end of that movie, I was scared as hell.
Oh
And
gosh.
it was so funny because it was interesting because they were in church, and they were preaching, but he never really said God, geez, he never really said anything like that, the
Mm.
preacher. So I'm saying something's not right. And then when the preacher actually came to his house to visit, no, him and his wife went to the preacher's house to visit. He goes in a bathroom. There's an upside down cross.
Uh-oh.
And I'm like, "Oh, snap." He looks at it and he says, "Huh, I guess," saying to himself, "Oh, I guess." And he
I'll just
turns it
turn it
upright.
around.
He turns it upright. And I'm like, okay, because he's a normal human being.
Hmm.
He leaves out, and a bad boy turns back the way it really was.
Oh,
And I was
right.
like,
Yeah, yeah.
"Oh, okay." So this is the
Yes.
type of town that he's in. But
Mm.
yeah, to make a long story short, for me, it's more a mind thing. That
Yeah.
film was in my head for damn near 2 weeks.
Gosh. Yeah, yeah. It must have been a hell of a movie. Have you
It
seen Speak No Evil by any chance?
No, let me write that down.
That is gonna fuck with your brain. I mean, it did with me, and I'm not easily creeped out anymore,
Mhm.
but this movie creeped me out.
Oh, wow.
And I don't even have kids, so I can't even imagine how parents feel. Oof.
Well, I'm a parent, so thank you for
Oh God, I'm so sorry.
thank you for the heads up.
You
But
are welcome.
we're empty nesters, so they're adults now. But
Okay, they
they're
can
still
fend for
yes,
themselves.
they're still my babies. But I'm gonna definitely
Oh.
watch that this weekend. But Alex, what's next? What's next in the future for you?
So yeah, hopefully we'll be coming to the States later this year. We are, as said, just finishing up post-production on the feature film. Things are going pretty well. We can't announce anything just yet, but we're hoping we can do soon. So the movie's called Kill Your Lover. It's the toxic relationship body horror that we mentioned at the beginning of the movie. The podcast also works. Everything's a movie. My life is a
Yes.
movie, right? I'm not delirious. What are you talking about? And yes, basically, over on Switchblade Cinema, that's kind of where you can find most of our stuff if you're interested in checking anything out. But basically, hoping to at least come to LA around October time, hopefully. And yeah, kind of just seeing where the feature film journey takes us. And
Okay.
in the meantime, Sucker is going to be having a hot sucker summer, as I like to call it,
A hot
by
summer
going on
summer.
Shudder, which is really fun. And then it's going to have sort of like its, you know, permanent online home soon after that as well. Um, so that'll be really fun to like show it to people who haven't been able to make it to a festival yet and stuff like that. And I think that's one of the ways in which, you know, it's great that things have become more accessible, right? And I hope
Yes.
that even though obviously online stuff was kind of born because of the pandemic, I kind of hope it sticks around to some degree, because I think the hybrid nature of it has actually helped a lot of people in many ways as well. So yeah, I'm just kind of, yeah, just excited for the future, I guess, as like bland as that could be. But yeah, like, I'm quite happy to be in a happy place.
Yes.
And like not fretting too much, kind of going, you know what I'm doing? I'm happy with what we're doing. And we'll just see, you know, if people like what we're making, I guess.
That's good. So any parting words of advice for anyone who may decide to get into this crazy thing of ours called the
This
film
crazy
business?
world. Find people that you vibe with and don't like, yeah, it's like having a good nature and like seeing the good in people is nice. But it's like you'll know when you found your tribe, and like hold on to them closely and keep working with them and building beautiful things together. um yeah, and just like, yeah, just have fun with it. Like, don't take it too seriously. This is like very rich coming from me. I'm a recovering perfectionist, but I promise you can let go of some things. I'm more telling myself that, I feel. But let's go back to the original thing, which is to just, yeah, find your tribe and have fun.
Well, awesome. Well, Alex, this has been absolutely amazing. This has been so much fun. Uh, wow. So you guys are coming out in October. I'm actually going to LA in a couple of weeks for the Micho Film Festival. So I
Oh,
don't think
nice.
I'll be out there in
Oh, bummer.
October, but that's okay. That's okay.
We'll stay in
You know,
touch.
absolutely. Because I'm definitely going to watch a couple more of your films, because I definitely I want to see Isolation.
Mm.
I definitely want to see Kill Your Lover. The title alone, I have to see it. Kill Your Lover, because you have a lot of people out there saying I'd like to, but I can't.
Catharsis,
Yeah,
catharsis.
yeah.
Come,
So
come see the murder of your lover
yeah,
in our movie.
live vicariously, ladies and gentlemen. But that's it.
Exactly.
So
That is all. We're not
that's it.
condoning anything else.
Right. But again, this was amazing. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy evening to sit down with me and talk about, everything that you're working on. And again, Sucker is in the Etheria Film Festival. Oh, wait a minute. Where can people find you?
Where can people find me? I
Yes.
am mostly haunting Instagram on alex.austin. That's Alex with an I, because I like to make people's lives difficult. And also Switchblade Cinema. Usually active there. I'm also on Twitter. That's more, that one's different. It's Alix Austin _. But yeah, that's the main places. And yeah, just feel free to fire me messages. I like talking to people.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it here. You heard it here first. So make sure you follow Alix and make sure you check out her phenomenal work. It's some amazing work. So I'm looking forward to seeing a heck of a lot more of it. And again, thank you so much for being here. I wish
Thank
you
you for
nothing
having.
but the best.
It's been an honest pleasure. It's been really lovely.
Well, thank you so much. You guys really make this easy. You really do. And you know, I'm like, make my job easy. And it's just so fun talking to talented people because I learn so much. But again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on a conversation with my special guest, Alix Austin. And if you like the episode, share it, tweet it, all those other good things. You know, the algorithms, you know how those things work. But until then, as I always like to say, love this like a hobby, but treat it like a business. And on that note, everyone have an absolutely amazing night. Take care, everyone. Peace.
Bye.